Bob Bagley, Cecil Bell, and Troy Bonin. We've got 3 straws. And Bob, you're going to pick first. Cecil, you pick next. Who's got the short one there? Cecil does. Okay, you go first. I go first. You're going to go first, and then we have to pick between these 2 guys.
I'll go last. That makes it easier.
Well, wait. Okay, you got your pick. Okay, just wanted to make it official. Okay, so it's going to be Cecil first, Troy your second, and then Bob your third. Okay. Opening statements, and let me get the timer set up, and then we're ready to go. Okay. Right.
I'm Cecil Bell Jr. I'm a 6th generation Texan. Family came to Texas in 1852. Married my childhood sweetheart, and we lived in Magnolia, Texas, 1.3 miles east of the Waldo County line. I have 2 sons. Charlie is our youngest son. He graduated this year. Trey is our oldest son. He graduated in 2010. I'm the president of the Bagley Independent School District Board of Trustees, chairman of our Economic Development Partnership, chairman of our T-Close training facility, and I have a bunch of other activities like that that are located on these cards that you can find over here on the table. I am self-employed. I've been self-employed since 1983. I build water plants, wastewater treatment plants, run cows in East Texas. I only have about 175 heads. We have 120 right now because of the effects of the drought. And I am very sincere in my statement that I believe we need business-minded people in Austin, Texas.
You guys are doing well. Okay, Troy?
All right, my name is Troy Bonin. I did my undergraduate out at Texas A&M in pre-med. I graduated from the University of Texas at the Medical Center. I practiced medicine out off of 1488 near 2978 in the newer part of Magnolia. My sweet precious wife Terry, who I've been married to for 23 years, and I have 10 arrows, or 10 children. Instead of 10 cattle, it's 10 children, but it's still a herd.
You might have 120.
No, I don't, but I'm working on it. And yeah, I think, as I was listening tonight to some of the issues that we need to address here, such as growth coming this way, for me, the bottom line is this. In the next 5 years, 50% of Texas' budget is going to be allocated to Medicaid. We have got to change business. It has got to stop. Scripture says that a godly man leaves an inheritance to his children and to his children's children. And I intend for that to happen. And as a conservative voice up in Austin, if you vote for me, I'll do it. You got to have enough.
Go.
I'm Bob Bagley. I'm retired Air Force, Vietnam, Gulf War vet, disabled vet. I never know what I'm going to say because my emotions run away with me. But I'm looking at that eagle when I come in here and looking at the tear in that eagle's eye. And that's the way I feel about our nation right now and our state. We've lost our liberties. We've lost our freedoms. We don't have the inheritance to pass on to our children and to our grandchildren that we were given. And we've got to make a stand. We've got to stop. We've got to close the borders. We've got to stop the illegal drugs. We've got to stop the crime that's coming in from the south. Most of this emphasis tonight's been on law enforcement, previous cop from the Air Force and Colorado Mountain Rangers. We have a big problem. Houston's brought in over 250% increase in crime in the past years. There's over $1 million a day of illegal drugs coming into this nation. We've got to make a change.
Thank you. Okay, now for the first response, we will go Troy, then Bob, then Cecil.
And I'm to respond.
Well, or you can say whatever you want.
Okay. I want to continue along this vein of what is happening with this cronyism that's occurring at the federal level and I believe at the state level as well. Guys, if we, I look at some of these good men who come up here, sheriffs, constables, and they say, we don't have enough money. And what we need to do as Texans, as Americans, we need to get our house in order. Now, what upsets me is they expect me to make sure that when I write a check, it doesn't bounce, right? But yet they're writing these checks left and right like a drunken teenager with the credit card in their hand with no accountability. Now, if we take, it's not that the money's not there. I'm telling you, the problem is fiscal irresponsibility. And that's one of the things I want to address if I get up in Austin. We need to, Cecil, take the bull by the horns. I'm going to borrow that from you. Take the bull by the horns and really wrestle this down to the ground. It's just, so fiscal responsibility and good social morals serve the guidance.
Okay, Bob?
I'll continue on. Right now, we've got 7,000 trucks that are coming across our southern border, that are coming in. In the old days, we had, before NAFTA and GATT, all of our vehicles got inspected. Today, we're getting 50 to 60 vehicles that are inspected that are coming across that border. These are trucks, these are semis that are coming in. Some of these semis that we had here, that were on the roads here, that didn't pass inspections, are now down there, and they don't have to pass inspection. And because of NAFTA, now that they're down there and they're licensed in Mexico, they don't have to pass inspection here. Well, it's not just bringing drugs in there, it's bringing these girls in there. And I don't know if you've listened to the news the last couple of days about the busts that ICE has done in Harris County. And they've been picking up these kids that have been brought in from Guatemala and every other country. This isn't a Mexican thing. This is an American thing. We need to close our borders. We've got troops all over this world that are protecting borders, and we're not even protecting our own. We could.
Cecil?
I'm endorsed by the Texas Alliance for Life. I'm certified pro-life by the Texas Right to Life. I'm an A-rated candidate by the NRA and by the TSRA. I'm endorsed by the Texas and Southwestern Cattle Raisers Association, the TNP, and by a number of other entities. I believe that we're not going to be able to get a grip on the fiscal and conservative principles that have to be in place in Austin, Texas, unless you send people up there who have held to hard budgets, who have made tough decisions, who have come out with livable outcomes. And I guarantee you send me to Austin, Texas. When you send me to Austin, Texas, I'll do that for Waller County.
Okay. Just as a little bit of explanation to the candidates, in the past, we've had trouble with the candidates filling their time, and we used to have 2-minute opening statements. I cut it down to 1 this year. It's probably too short, and I apologize for cutting you guys off. I think what we'll do with the closing statements, we'll lengthen those to 2 minutes each so that you have a little bit more time to talk and to get your thoughts across. So again, my apologies there. Okay, it's time for questions and answers. So does someone, yes?
Quick question, what do you got running for?
State House.
State representative.
I'm sorry.
It was created by redistricting. Dr. Zerwald, because of the growth in population, Fort Wayne County moved south.
Just a quick answer.
State representative.
I thought he introduced us that way, but
We should have probably given a little bit of background to this is a new district, Steve.
My question is, I'd like to hear from all three, is we have some really effective legislators in Austin, and we've had several from down this area that have been effective in Austin. How do you plan, once one of you wins this office, how do you plan to work with the veterans that are already there?
What order?
I'll go first.
Go ahead, Bob.
I've got a history. I moved down here in '97 when I retired from the Air Force as a single dad with 2 kids, my 2 daughters. I swore to my kids that I wasn't going to get back involved in politics because I was doing it in Colorado. I was going to relax, take life easy. It took 6 months, and that's all I could handle. I've been a citizen legislator and an activist since that time. I go to Austin, I lobby, I know a majority of not only the state reps, but the state senators, the governor, the lieutenant governor. I've been there. I'm not going, and this is my job. I mean, this will be my full-time job. I was a business owner. I'm not anymore. I can't do the stuff that I used to do. I had a glass company. I can't do that lifting and stuff anymore because of the things that the government did. But I've got a broad history of lobbying up there for pro-life movement, gun movements, our dump that we had in Montgomery County. I'm on the board for Montgomery County Hospital District. I did the exact same thing. Lobbied up there for them. I mean, I've got a history where it's been done and never been paid for it. It's all volunteer. When I leave the hospital district, which is pretty much a full-time job, I had to leave there to come here tonight. This would be the full-time job. That's all I have in life.
Cecil?
How do you work with other people? I think you have to have the right personality. You have to have the right determination that you're going to try to get something done, not just go to Austin, Texas. I think to do that, you have to have demonstrated in your life an ability to deal with people even when the situation may be tense. And the outcome certainly affects a lot of different people. I think if you look at my community service, you'll find that I've made that transition in that sector as a school board trustee where we make some really tough decisions and we have a lot of people that are affected by those decisions. I think you see that in my business dealings where as a contractor I interact with engineers and folks like that. I think you take those same proven principles, you take them to Austin, Texas, you take what we need to have happen, and you begin to interact with your then colleagues in a manner that allows you to not take for granted those things that have historically happened, but to indeed look at the gravity and weightiness of what's going on in Austin and how it affects our future and go about making tangible change to move us in the direction that we can live with financially. You've got to be fiscally sound and conservative. And I think you can do that. You have the right personality, the right proven characteristics, and the integrity and character to stand up for the people of Waller County and House District.
Troy?
Just a little clarification on the question. Are you talking about the leaders that are conservative that line up with our values, or those who may be stronger on the other side of others?
I'm talking about the folks that you're going to have to deal with in Austin that have been there for years.
Okay, great.
Legislature, both parties.
Thank you. Because I appreciate that. You know, I look at it like this, and I'm going to use a medical terminology if I can. In medicine, we use something called an antibiotic when there's an infection. But the thing about in medicine over the years, we've used it for so long, the antibiotic, when you take it, it kills the good flora or bacteria in your body as well as the bad bacteria. My point is this. For too long, we've had new freshmen go up there to be intimidated only by the power brokers and even the PAC money, if you will, and to be influenced such that they're worried next about what's coming up in their election 2 years away than dealing with business on the floor at that time. I can assure you this, I'm taking a pay cut if I get elected, if I win the seat. And it's not for the money. I'm doing it because I had, Bob said he was, one of the guys here said they're part of the Marine Force. I'm part of the AF, American Family Support Force. My 10 children is what I'm saying. What I have invested in them, I want to go up to these guys, and whether it's they're on the opposite side of the fence or they're with me on my side of the fence, is just simply stand my ground and represent the constituents that in Waller County, Grimes County, and Montgomery. And what we say, one of the things that just bothers the fire out of me, and I think there needs to be more accountability here, is somebody who gets up and says, elect me, because I'm gonna represent you the way you want to be represented. And then when they go up there, they totally vote opposite of what you put them in for. I say we put something in place that holds the elected officials responsible. As a dentist, if you come in my office and I say to you, I'm going to do a filling on you, and I end up doing a root canal, you can turn around and sue me. As an elected official, I can say to you, hey, I'm going to go up there and vote pro-life and turn around and vote pro-dad, and you can't do anything to me. There's just, you know, guys, the system's broken. We need to change it. And my stand on it is this. I'm willing to come alongside some of those hardcore conservative, fiscal responsible elected officials who are willing to stand side by side with me and say enough is enough. We are spending away, we are wasting away our country's future by this cronyism that continues to occur in Capitol and even worse in D.C.
Question? More questions for the candidates? No? Okay. For all three of
Are
them?
y'all like, yes, for all
Okay.
three of you?
Okay.
Are you avid readers?
I am. I have to be.
I read, but I read it on discs or cassettes for the traveling and everything laws and stuff, when I started into it, when you're starting into the, actually researching, it's kind of like Bible study. When you start in, it just takes hours and hours to get things, to get through it. It's one of the things that we have to do, but for fun reading, I would rather put a disc in, go sit by the pond, and listen to a nice book, smoke a cigar, and have a glass of wine.
Hey, Catherine, let me ask you real quickly, do you have I'm just curious, do you have a preference towards fiction, nonfiction?
Yes, no, do I have a preference
Yeah.
in my own reading?
Yeah.
Nonfiction.
Okay, my wife, when I read, she makes me. I don't have a choice, because I like reading too.
No, what I'm getting at, there's a lot of reading involved in that.
It's actually what I would tell you is that if you go up there and not read, then we're going to live with a lot of things that we're not supposed to
There's
live
a
with.
lot of those bills that have been passed, and the bills have never been read.
Yes, we have, I've
And
been
you
working
have
with
got an obligation to your
Excuse me,
constituents.
Cecil, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. But you have an obligation to your constituents to read anything that you're going to be asked to sign. And I do not believe, I think we live today in a world where the effects of legislators going to Washington, certainly, and Austin as well, and simply signing it because someone says this is what should be done. That's irresponsible. It cannot be tolerated. And we have a process for dealing with people who don't do what we send them up there to do. We call it elections, and we need to vote. Anybody who's not doing the job that we send them up there to do, we need to vote them out of office. We don't need to wait. We need to do it. We need to do it now. But I do read. I read a tremendous amount of what I do for a living. I will not go to any meeting unless I am prepared for that meeting. And I will not go to Austin and not be prepared to do the job you sent me up there to do when you elect me.
I'm part of an action committee group. It's called Read the Bill Act. Is anybody else part of that? We've been trying to get it passed on the federal level for about 3 to 5 years now. And it's simple. Congressman, read the bill. Okay? Now, this is what they did with this Obamacare. They got out these 20,000 pages or whatever it was, released it 2 days prior, 1 day prior to the vote. And the Democrats, as well as the Republicans, went and voted on it. And you know what they're doing now is they distance themselves from those who have, spiritual convictions as we do on abortion. Well, I didn't know that was in there. I didn't read it. Well, read the darn bill. But come on. And they have their chief of staff read it, or somebody reads it and says, yeah, just sign off, and then they sign and they push through the legislation. And this whole thing about transparency in government is just, it's crap.
We
Okay.
have that on the state level with the Trans-Texas Court, and the same thing happened.
Yeah.
And we spent 4 years fighting that.
I want to even things out. Bob, do you want to add anything?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, when you're talking about bills, I didn't know where you were going with the reading. I love to listen to books, but I don't. If I've got to study it, it's a totally different thing. I was in that fight with Texas Transporter. That's not over with. Governor Perry has us believing that it's not going to take place. And I will assure you, because I've followed this the entire time, that it's still in there. We cannot sit and rest. This is something that everybody has to do. I applaud y'all for coming out tonight, because I know there's a lot of other things you could be doing. I don't know whether American Idol or one of those things is on, because I never watch them, but thanks for coming out. But this is what we expect. I worked for a state senator in Colorado. I was his campaign manager, and then I went to work in his office as a volunteer. But we expect the public to let us know how they feel about some of these issues, because the majority of the laws that get brought forward are because of a reaction that took place somewhere along the line. This took place. For instance, during the last session, one of the things was not texting in the automobile because somebody ended up losing their life because somebody else was texting. Well, there's a whole lot more accidents that take place from somebody smoking and dropping their cigarette butts, or from somebody putting on their makeup or dropping their coffee. But these are the laws that get brought up, and that they have to do with it. 5,000 laws last year.
Somebody else have a question?
I just want to say, I think, like he said, Nancy Pelosi summed it up when she said that the past bill to find out what was in it.
Yeah.
But it's a sad state.
And I can say, from the time that the working that I've had in the state legislature, not every representative will read every bill, but they also have a staff to be able to do that for them. Because when you're up there, you're in committee meetings, you're working from early morning until early morning. Sometimes you don't get done until 2 o'clock in the morning, and you've got to be back in the office at 7 o'clock in the morning. So they're not going to, well, I'm just saying, that it isn't an excuse. I'm telling you that you cannot sit there as a rep and read 5,000 bills.
Excuse me, we need one more
I'm not saying
question.
that you have to
and then we
vote on it.
have
I'm just saying that, and you don't have to vote on them, but when all of these bills come across, and none of the three of us will vote on every bill that comes across there, but that's how many bills are present. I'm sorry.
One more question, and then we have to move on to the closing statements.
I've got a question for everybody. Heard the term fiscal conservative mentioned a couple of times tonight, and we'd like to know a little more specifically what you would do from both the revenue side and the expense side. Maybe two cuts that you would make and two additional revenue sources or something like that.
I'm glad.
Let's go from this side over.
Okay.
Cecil, and I'm going to have to cut you guys off at a minute. So.
No problem.
Well, I'll just tell you that before you can talk about the revenue side, you have to address the cost side. And right now, if you look at public education, for example, you have a formula out there, it's an algorithm that pays you for less money than you're supposed to get per student, but for more kids than you really have. Meaning you get less money than you're supposed to get, but more than you would have got. And you wouldn't sell land on that same premise. And I'm going to tell you right now that you can talk all you want to about revenue, but until you correct the funding formula, straighten them up, where the people you elect to oversee the process can do that job, it's a fool's mission to go down there and learn how to set a budget exactly the way it's currently being set and to expect a different outcome. I've heard all kinds of conversations about how to limit revenue and how to change revenue, but until you can fix the cost, I don't want to spend any money anymore. I don't want to spend my money anymore. So let's figure out what we're spending our money on and then go from there. That's fiscal. So
In 5 years, if we continue like we have been, in 5 years, our entire budget is going to be for schools and Medicaid. That's it. We won't have anything for anything else. We've got a problem in our state legislature, and it's been there for years. We started the lottery system years back. All of that money was supposed to go to education. The state legislature found a loophole so that they could start taking the money away from that. The sale of a new car, all of the money from the sales tax from a new car is supposed to go into the roads. The state legislature decided to take 60% of that. The gasoline tax that we're paying, 100% of that was supposed to go to DPS. The state legislature found out a way to take that away as well. We have a spending problem in the state capitol. We talk about the problems that we have in Washington, D.C., but we have the same problems here in our capital, just at a smaller scale. We've got to stop the spending. There's so many ways that we can cut the budget. I do not want another tax, and in fact, if I can, I will eliminate the gross margins tax, because that tax put a 600% increase into some of the small businesses just on taxes.
Troy?
Yeah, one of the things I'd say lines up a lot with Bob and Cecil. I think that fiscally, what bothers me is to hear that we have some of the most important jobs on the street, such as our sheriffs and our constables, and they're not funded. Okay, so you take $1 billion, last year $1 billion was diverted from gasoline tax that was supposed to go to a particular project in roads, and it went somewhere else. It doesn't make sense to me. You define the project, you define what's to be spent on it, and then you spend that money. That's for that project, right? Same thing is true. Let me put it this way. Bob brought up the fact that in 5 years, education is in Medicaid is going to consume 50% all of our budget. If you go to Texas A&M and you lived up there, I lived up there, my son lived with me. Tuition would be $8,600 a year for my son to go there. Do you know it costs $11,000 per child from pre-K to 12th grade per year? That's more in elementary than it does for our college graduates to get out of college. Guys, it just does not make sense. We've got to adjust the system. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Okay, now it's time for the closing statements, and we're going to go in order of Bob first, Cecil second, and Troy third. So we'll give you 2 minutes each, and ready, set, go, Bob.
We've talked about cutting. We've talked about a number of things. there are a number of issues that we have in our state, things that we need to fix. My three main concerns are still borders, language, and culture. Part of my history is Cherokee, Indian, and Choctaw. My grandfather was not allowed to speak Cherokee in the house. No, he wasn't allowed to. None of us were allowed to hear it. He and his sister were taught, so the language never got brought down. The only reason I bring that up is, in order to be a U.S. citizen, you have to learn how to read, write, and speak the English language. If that's the case, then why are we spending all the money that we're spending on ballots and everything else, and for elections, to have multiple languages? If you're legal and you're voting, you have to be a U.S. citizen, and you have to be able to read English. That's one thing that we could quit, and we could save a lot of money in. The other thing we could save a lot of money in is quit spending the money for education for the illegals that are here. All the freebies that are issued out. When we moved down here, I had to have health records, birth certificate, things like that for my daughters when we came down here. If you go in and you're an illegal, you don't have to have an ID card. You can take and enroll your child into school. If they don't have shots, they're given the free shots, and they get all their education for free. We've got to make a change. It's killing us. Our jails are filled with at least 30%, it's actually over 30% of our jails are filled with illegals. The crimes that we're seeing are illegals. We just had another death in Montgomery County. Well, actually, it was in Harris County. We had one in Montgomery County a week ago. Harris County, the man that ran into the kid on the steps when his dad was barbecuing was a drunk illegal. It happens every week. We've got to close our borders. We've got to stop spending this money that we're taking away from our generations to follow.
Cecil?
I'll stand right here and tell you that I believe in the Constitution of the United States of America. And I believe we have a God-given right to elect those who will represent us. And I believe that we're supposed to be able to know those people who represent us. We are supposed to be engaged participants in our governance. And I commend you for being here tonight because it says that you desire to be an engaged participant in your own governance. And until such time as we make it a commitment not to just go and vote, to be informed voters so that we send people to, in this case, to Austin, Texas, who know how to get the job done, who have the integrity and the character and the proven ability to go up there, make tough, sound decisions, and do what is in the interest of the constituents of House District 3 and of Waller County. That is what we're sending them there to do. That is what we are supposed to do. I believe that it is necessary for us to protect our Texas values. I believe that until such time as we make that be a priority, that ourselves, our kids, our grandkids, and those generations yet unborn, unless we draw a line in the sand now and stop the business of government as usual, we will not give them a Texas that we would recognize. And that's an unacceptable outcome. And the only way to know what you get is to be able to see what you're sending. And I will be exactly what you see when you send me to Austin, Texas, to represent Waller County and the constituents of House District 3. I will do that job. Vote for me, and I will be that loud voice in Austin, Texas, for Waller County and for the constituents of House District 3. God bless Texas.
You know, I speak for all of these two good gentlemen up here as I say this. There is no other state in England that I'd rather live in than the country of Texas. And I mean that. I think we're as good as it gets as a representation, and we can be a model for the rest of the states in the Union. Listen to this. 1887, Alexander Tyler, the Scottish history professor, said this of all the great nations from the beginning of time that he studied to the present. He said, during the 200 course years of these great nations, it always progressed in this manner. From bondage to spiritual faith to great courage. From courage to liberty, from liberty to abundance, from abundance to complacency, and from complacency to apathy, and then from apathy to dependence. Independence back to bondage. Listen to me. Somebody sent me an email the other day that said this. Don't feed the animals because then they won't learn how to feed and fend for themselves. 2/3 of the United States budget is aimed towards welfare. Guys, I'm not talking about throwing people on the streets. I'm talking about we have to reorganize our priorities. And I think Texas can do that. I told you already, 50% of our state budget is going to Medicaid. If we don't go in and get the bull by the horns and get control of the spending, these special interest groups, then we're not going to leave a great inheritance for our children. We're not going to have something for them because we gave it up. So, you know, I want you to know that my wife is going to shoot me for saying this. These two men are good men. No? Oh, I'm sorry. I had to blame somebody. They are good men. I think I'd represent the district better. I do. And I'm asking that as you look me up. I've had a small business for practicing medicine for 20 years. I've worked for the Baptist Corporation. You know, most doctors don't do well in business. I've done okay. So, looking for your vote. You look my name up on that ballot. You folks, Bonin for freedom. Big freedom, okay? Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. That brings everything to a close. We want to thank you. Appreciate it very much, and we want to thank all of the candidates. It takes a lot of dedication and time and commitment for these folks to do what they're doing, and we all owe them, all of the candidates for all the races, a debt of appreciation for what you do. So thank you very much.